Well, hello there. Today we're going to be talking about how to tell the difference between your ego and your intuition. This is definitely a question that tends to come up. And so I want to jump into that, but I want to make a couple announcements before we officially get into all of that. The first thing that I wanted to share with you is if you are like, Whitney, where is the training happening? Please make sure you actually sign up for our Intuition and Spirit Guide Challenge. I know that so many of you have joined our free Facebook group, which I'm very happy that you have done that. But even if you're in the Facebook group, you actually need to sign up for the challenge so that you get all the information coming through, all the things that we're going to be doing inside, and you'll know when the training is and where it is. So if you'll go to messengerofspirit.com/sign up to make sure you're getting our emails about the challenge and when things happen. And if you have any trouble, any tech problems, you're like, hey, wait a minute, something's just not looking right for me. I'd love for you to go to email us at support@messengerofspirit.com if you've got any kind of tech questions. Many of you have been asking about the time and dates as well. And so we've got a time conversion tool. The trainings are going to be September 14th, 15th, and 16th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And I hope that you can join us live because those of you who join us live will have a chance to win some fun prizes. But if you absolutely cannot join live, you can watch the replay, but there'll be very limited time replays. So I wanted to kind of give you the scoop. And I know that many of you already signed up, but I've just gotten so many questions like, wait a minute, I'm here in the group, but like, what's going on? messengerofspirit.com/sign up to make sure you get all the details. Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm glad you're joining us live. Hey, Cindy and Nakia. Good to see you. And Anissa and everyone else watching the replay. So if you're here, I'd love for you to just comment, hey, I'm here. If you're watching the replay, I'd love for you to comment #replay. So let's go ahead and talk about, is it your ego or your intuition? So how do I let go of my ego so I can listen to my intuition more clearly? It's a very important question I think every single student I've ever worked with has asked at some point in their intuitive development. And it's so helpful to let go of control and expectation when receiving intuitive messages. That's something that our ego says is important to control. When we move into spiritual development and intuitive messages and spirit guide communication, that control goes out the window because we have to allow, we have to receive. And our mind wants to say, but wait a minute, was it an actual message? Wait a minute, I need to make sure that was right. Maybe, you know what? I don't know. I saw somebody posted in our group and she said, I was really asking for a sign and it was literally in my face. And then once I got that sign, I was like, was that a sign? So our ego really likes to try to control. And so one of the most important things that we need to do is to retrain our brain, to retrain our patterning. And so that's what I love to do with my students in my programs. And next week in our 3-day challenge, we'll start to bring more awareness to your intuition, but doing it consistently, doing exercises, and really being with people who support you can be 100% helpful as you retrain that brain. Now, we can't ever fully let go of ego because ego keeps us grounded. It helps us give us our common sense and our logic and what's going on in our world. But when we have too much ego, people tend to think, well, you think you're great and awesome. First of all, I think everybody hopefully thinks you're great and you're awesome. However, like too much, we sometimes think that they are just have so much pride. Ego actually is the control freak in our lives. So we don't think about that sometimes. We think, wait a minute, oh, ego means this. When I talk about it in intuition and spirit guide development, ego is, I want to make sure I'm getting this right. I want to be perfect and I want to control it. And I want to make sure, wait a minute, I don't think that's what it was. So ego thinks you're not good enough. And ego actually tries to control it so it can be perfect. So that's our definition of ego when we're talking about it. So unraveling that control freak in our life, which is our ego, can be a process. It usually doesn't happen overnight, but the tips that I love to teach you help you so that you can go, okay, I'm putting my intuition as a priority and my ego can take a back seat. So let's talk about some of the things that can be really helpful for you when you want to receive intuitive messages. Now, you know that I talk about consistency is important, really doing intuitive exercises, which is why I have programs and how to do that, because it takes consistent effort. But also, I want to give you some tips that you might not have thought about. So one is set aside time just for your intuition, like just for your intuition. If you don't, then you are going to stay hella confused and wonder if your mind is making it up or if it was a message from your spirit guides all the time. Because if you're not setting aside time just for your intuition, you're going to be mixed with intuitive thought and ego thought. And you will not be able to tell the difference. Because if you're always thinking with your internal chatter, I've got to get the groceries. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot to add this to my grocery list. Now I have to pay the bills. Oh, was that an intuitive message that came in? Oh, wait a minute. I've got to write this down. That's not enough space. And your brain starts to say, I'm going to mix together intuition and my own thoughts. Here it is. So taking time and space to actually allow for intuition to flow and do intuitive exercises, talking to your spirit guides, asking your spirit guides at that time, hey, I'd love to receive your messages right here, and I'm going to allow my mind to be clear. You'll start to understand the energetic imprint that your intuitive messages carry. And the more that you understand and allow it to flow, you'll start to recognize that intuitive energetic signature that happens. So for instance, you know, if I say to you, hey, what are you doing? That's shouting, right? And if I say, hey, what are you doing? You know, that's whispering. With your intuitive messages, you start to really receive them usually as whispers, and then they become louder. And you start to identify, that's an intuitive message that's really important. That's an intuitive message coming in from my guides, but it may not be something I have to listen to right now. So you can basically feel this one is like of utmost importance. This one is an intuitive message that I'm listening to, but it's not like, stop what you're doing. So the whispers and the yelling. The second thing I'd love for you to do is clear your mind. This is the most important component to anything that I teach when I work with students. If you don't clear your mind, then your brain is kind of scrambled with your intuitive thoughts. Your mind is scrambled with your intuitive thoughts. So, one, give yourself permission to clear your mind. That's really important. That's really nice. Like you've got to just tell your mind, I'm going to give myself permission in this moment to let go. And then clear your mind. Now, the way that I teach my students is you can clear your mind in 5 seconds flat, and it's depending upon your intuitive type. However, we find resistance in clearing our minds. And what normally happens is we clear our minds and then we go, oh crap, I forgot to get the groceries last night. Uh-oh, wait a minute, I forgot my dry cleaning. And sometimes our body fights clearing the mind because we feel lazy if our brain isn't active. And that's really what happens. So really, we're like, I'm not productive. I'm not productive. I got to do stuff. I can't relax until I go to sleep. So sometimes I tell my students, hey, clear your mind and talk to your guides right before you go to bed, if that works for you. Other people, it works fantastic when they do it in the morning. So with that being said, find out what your energetic cycle is. And then I always recommend to write down all the things that you need to do so that you can give your brain, your mind, some reprieve. It's written down. That means I can relax right now. And you can simply use the mantra, the affirmation, I give myself permission to clear my mind. I promise I'll come back to this list later. So set aside time for your intuition and clear your mind. Give yourself permission. Find out how it works best for you. Tell your mind you're giving yourself permission and write everything down. And I promise I'll come back to this later. 3, be consistent in your exercises. I know I told you that ahead of time, but I really am making sure you understand this as a priority. Unfortunately, a lot of people who are interested in intuition just are interested and they kind of come in at a one-time thing and they're like, cool, I'll work on it later. And then that's it. And then their intuition doesn't get better because they're not actually making it a priority. So this one is huge. It's a biggie. If you're training to run a 5K, do you think that you're just going to say, I'm going to go run a 5K and here I am without any prior training? Da-da. Now, some people might do that. I think the success rate is probably lower if that happens. But normally your answer is going to be no, because I need to train my muscles. I need to train my body to level up to that energetic cycle, leveling up to that energetic expenditure that's going to happen, and to that vibration and that energy. So your body starts to step up its endurance every time you do some training. The more consistent you are with your intuitive exercises, the more you're going to build up that intuitive muscle. So you start to understand how the message comes in, and intuitive messages become regular, not just by happenstance. You'll start to recognize what they feel like, what they look like, what they sound like, and what they are like for you. So I really encourage you to be consistent in that and invest time, or even invest in a course or invest in yourself. Make it a priority. Number 4, write your intuitive messages down or record them on a voice app. Or what I love to do in our programs are to have intuitive play days for validation. So let me explain what this is. Basically, number 4 is validation. And you can do this in a couple different ways. So what we do in our programs is we love to partner you up so that you do exercises and your partner can validate what you're saying or what you're receiving. Another way you can do this on your own, write your intuitive messages down. So writing your intuitive messages down can be so helpful in a journal. Or if you are like Whitney, I get them when I'm cooking, I get them when I'm cleaning, I get them like right before I fall asleep. Here's a couple things you can do. If you've got a phone, you probably got a notes app. You can jot them down. That's what I do, actually. I write down my intuitive messages on my notes app because let's face it, most of us have our phones most of the day. If you've got a journal, you can do that as well. I have many students that like to have a journal by their bed and they wake up and they start writing. And they've told me stories like my spouse woke up and was like, what are you doing? Hey, don't interrupt me. I'm writing down a message. Another thing you can do is literally record voice memos for yourself. So if you have a voice memo app, you can record the messages coming in. Why are we doing this? We're doing this, one, because it enhances our intuition and our listening and bringing our priority to the messages that we're receiving. We also are doing this because we can reflect back at what came through and we can receive validation. Oh, wait a minute, I did totally get this 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 2 years ago. So keeping a record of your intuitive messages can tell your brain and your ego, wait a minute, this actually is an intuitive message. Look, it was right. So with that, we're telling our ego this. The more you write it down, the more you're able to tell the difference between your intuition and your ego. When you're clearing your mind, you're able to know that whatever's coming through when your mind is clear is 100% intuition. When you're consistent in your exercises, you start to understand, okay, this is validating. I'm understanding this. And also, I'm getting to flex that muscle so that I understand more of the intuitive frequency of what that is. And so I now can determine this is an intuitive message versus this was a thought, because you're consistent and you're doing it on a regular basis. And number 5, find support. Find group support, find a mentor for support. If you're around people, though, that don't understand and aren't trying to work towards their intuition, or they kind of poo-poo the metaphysical talk, then it's going to be harder to trust yourself. Because if you are really looking for that support, hey, oh my gosh, I want to celebrate this, I got an intuitive message, and whoever you're talking to says, what? No. Then somehow your ego is going to say, this isn't right. No, you didn't get a message. You're not good enough. And so it's really important to find people to talk to, a group of people. And so you can totally do this inside of our challenge that we're having next week, to find support, to go, wait a minute, I got an intuitive message. and others can cheer you on. And when you're around people that are wanting to do the same thing that you want to do in your intuition and your spiritual development, it flourishes. And then you start to understand, wait a minute, you got your intuitive message this way. I got my intuitive message this way. And the more positivity and the more energy you put towards it, because our energy flows where our attention goes, then our intuition becomes more prominent. And when our intuition becomes more prominent, guess what? We start to understand the difference between our ego and our intuition. So I want you to imagine, as you're growing your intuition, that it is breaking ground, right? So it's coming up from the earth. You could imagine the earth being the ego, the limits that are like, no, you can't grow. And then all of a sudden you nourish your intuition. And as your intuition grows, it moves up through the soil. And it's this beautiful flower, this beautiful plant. That's like, yay. And the ego, then when you put yourself in the right soil, the ego, if you want to say that's the earth, is nurturing and supportive. We need our ego. However, too much of it can say we're not good enough and control. And so with these 5 tips, then I would love for you to implement them. And tell me how you're going to implement them. Put them in the comments. Let me know how you're going to implement them. And for those of you who are watching the replay, do the same. I'd love to know. Sharing with others and the supportive community can be so helpful because it inspires. We go, oh, wait a minute. I didn't think about that, but Laura posted this. But now I'm going to take that and I'm going to try it. So this can be something that's really, really helpful. All right. I hope that all of you enjoyed this. A couple things. So join our challenge next week. We're going to talk about the biggest blocks to your intuition so you can become more aware of them and how your intuition most likely shows up for you. So you can start to really get a feeling of how your recipe looks in your intuitive language. And then the 5 biggest things you need to do to clearly and confidently connect to your spirit guides. I'll have it next week. But I know that some of you have already signed up. But if you're wondering, where's my email? Make sure you've signed up, messengerspirit.com/sign up. Lindsay posted underneath this link, underneath the comments, the link is what I was trying to say. And if you are having any trouble getting access to anything, always email support@messengerspirit.com so we can help you out. But even if you're in the group, you might be confused. Make sure you sign up so you're not confused. We can answer those questions as well. I love this. Molly says she's actually started writing things down. Yes, Molly. Awesome. Amber says that sometimes you feel like your family doesn't care to understand. Absolutely. This is something that happens a lot for everyone waking up into their intuition. I know that it was scary to even try because I felt like there were so many limiting beliefs around me. And I had to really find a supportive group of people. And I literally was like, am I the only person out there that thinks like this? Because the movies kind of give a different perception to people who talk to spirit. And the funny thing is, I just didn't think it was normal. It actually is normal. I'm here to tell you, every single person is born with intuition. They just sometimes don't know how to access it. Some of us are born supercharged, intuition everywhere. I need to calm it down. Some of us are like, nope, don't even have one piece of intuition. Like, where is it? And then the others are like somewhere in between. So understanding that if you're really wanting to talk about what you're experiencing, not everybody understands because they don't experience it, but it is normal. I wish that we taught this stuff in school, which is why I have a school to help teach you, but I wish we were able to learn this at a younger age. And what happens is, wherever you are, the more that you learn, the more that you take intuition, right, training and things like that, the more that you do that, you can then normalize it and help others too. So the more that you talk about your abilities, somebody else goes, oh, wait a minute, that person talked about it too. So you can light up other people's lights. When I had an office way back years ago, when I was on the East Coast, I remember some of my, so by the way, where I opened my office was very, very religious. And I thought, oh my goodness, we're going to see how this is. But I had people that would come in and they would share, I really loved her reading. And they'd say, she's normal in everything. She doesn't have a crystal ball. She's got an office. I'm like, yes, we all have this ability. And I think the movies just kind of sensationalize it. So this is a normal ability we all have. We can all connect to spirit. And I want to help you connect to the way that you receive it, because I promise you, you have intuition, and you might be already knowing that and wanting to hone it even more clearly. You might be like, I don't know how to do it at all, and I'm brand new. Come on in to our world next week and find that intuitive spark within. So I hope to see you next week, messengerspirit.com/sign up. And I hope that you use these 5 tips and tell me how it's working for you in the comments. I love to read them. So I'll see you next week. I'm probably going to go live on Monday as a little bonus hello and let everybody know what to expect. But our training officially starts September 14th, which is a Tuesday. So the 14th, 15th, and 16th. All right, I will see you there.